Hi, everybody. Great to be with you today. My name is Barnaby Wynter of the Brand Bucket Company. And actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to build on absolutely everything that Amanda has just talked about in the next half an hour or so. Please put things in the chat if you want any questions, and then maybe Amanda will feed those in as when required. Everything in marketing has changed. I've been in the marketing industry for 35 years. I've produced over 457 brands worldwide. And actually, it was about 6 or 7 years ago that I was inspired to rethink my understanding of the way marketing works. We spent 10 years developing what we now call the Brand Bucket program. It's not a button, but it is a bucket. So hopefully by the end of the day, you'll be filling your bucket with buttons or your button with buckets. We don't know how it's going to go, but Margaret's going to dovetail into this, I'm quite sure. Every shopping trip that I ever go on, every holiday that I go on, my daughters are always insistent, and I have 3 in total, on making sure that we go to specific shops. And a few years ago, 6 or 7 years ago, we were in Paris visiting Disney. Disney's my thing. I think it's one of the best expressions of brand you'll ever have. If you've never been to Disney, you should go just from a brand experience point of view and from a personal brand point of view. There are multiple characters, all who have ultimately personal brands that we associate with. So it's a great expression of personal brand. And what I discovered was something that Einstein had fallen foul of outside a shop called Abercrombie & Fitch. Now, Abercrombie & Fitch is damn hard to find. It's on the Champs-Elysees, and it's only really characterized by one particular sign on a fence. And next to it are these beautiful ornate gates. And so my daughter's very keen to go to Abercrombie & Fitch. I'm not keen on Abercrombie & Fitch. Made sure my credit card was locked away, let them go and spend their own money. That was at least some restricted process, although my wife went in with them. And as we approached the gate, 2 very fine looking gentlemen, another reason why you don't let your daughters into Abercrombie & Fitch, prevented our entrance. And these beautiful ornate gates, you can see the 2 blokes there. And they said, no, you can't come in. I'm sorry, you can't come in. And we said, well, why not? They said, well, what you actually have to do is you have to join the queue. The queue? Now, we've been on a shopping trip for already an hour and a half, and I'll be damned if I was going to join a queue. I said, how long is this queue? Oh, today it's looking like 45 minutes. 45 minutes to get into a shop through a gate, which you can't see. You can't see the shop, you can't see any goods. I was out. So I sat on some benches on the pathway there. You can just see them in the distance. And I watched my daughters meander through this queue until eventually they went into Abercrombie & Fitch, at which point I probably realized they'd be at least another hour. So I sat there and really thought, what was going on here? Here is a shop you can't see. It was actually relatively difficult to find. You have to queue to get into it. And then it struck me that everybody who was leaving Abercrombie & Fitch appeared to be carrying an Abercrombie & Fitch bag. Now, I'm quite sad and I don't get out much, even less so now we're in this online arena. I was really looking forward to doing this face-to-face, but here we are back again on Zoom. It's fine. But I counted people, and of the first 100 people leaving Abercrombie & Fitch, 83 people were carrying an Abercrombie & Fitch bag. And I thought, well, do you know what? I must have miscounted that. So I did it again. And the second time, 81 people were carrying an Abercrombie & Fitch bag out of the 100. And then my daughters emerged. And this really got me thinking, how come what's going on here has fundamentally changed? People are queuing to get into a shop. They can't see the goods, and yet it's leading to an 82% conversion rate. Now, not many of you are on camera, but those of you on camera, wave at me if you'd like a business that no one can find, that when they find it's really difficult to get into, right? And then ultimately it leads to an 82% conversion rate. Who would like that? Because we can all go and stay in bed then. Just wave at me if you want to say, yeah, I'd like a business that converts at 82% without being easy to find. So it really got me thinking. And as a result, I spent over 18 months working out what actually was going on. Now, during the last 2 years, we've also been faced with having to queue. It's been a result of the pandemic. And actually now we're even used to queuing. And actually, when you think about this, it's crazy. And what I first of all discovered is actually the idea of selling now is finished. It's no longer about selling. It's all about how you help people to buy. Now, this was inspired by a book called The Challenger Sale. I've got it on my bookshelf. All these books are real, and I've read all of them. So this is a book that you can see called The Challenger Sale. It came out in 2011. And actually in it, it said that the people who make the most sales are the people who challenge the thinking of their prospects. They then followed this up with a thing called the Challenger Customer, because they realized they talked about selling to the B2Bs, but what about the rest of us? How does that affect us? And they discovered something amazing. And that is, at the point of first contact with your organization, with you as an individual, people have made 57% of the decision to buy. Just think about that for a minute. They are more likely to buy from you than not buy from you. Now, I don't know how many of you are in the B2B context or in the B2C context. And actually, that normally raises the question, but does this change? Does this change? Is it B2B or is it B2C? Well, let me tell you, there is no difference. And the reason why there's no difference is because you look at the numbers. Right now in the UK, there are 5,591 million companies in the UK. But here's how they break down. 4.2 million of them have no employees at all. They run as individual businesses. Many of us here today, I'm sure. A further 1.2 million have 1 to 9 employees. A further 210,000 have between 10 and 49 employees. A further 35,500 have between 50 and 249 employees. And what's scary most of all is that half the population work for only 7,655 companies in the United Kingdom. Now think about this, everyone, because if you think you're in the business of selling to corporates, you're in the wrong space. You have to understand that actually 99.9% of all businesses are small businesses and probably run by one person. So actually, this has become very personal now. Really become very personal. It's not just about selling to big corporations. There aren't any. There's enough people on the call today to cater for the 7,655 customers, let alone all the other 6 million businesses vying for that business. So you've got to do something different. And the thing that you must understand is that B2B and B2C are the same. They're the same target market. The thinking from a marketing brand building point of view is exactly the same for both because of the nature of the market. And it's true in America, it's true across Europe, it's true in Australia. I've looked at all the numbers. So the critical thing right now is it's not about outbound marketing anymore. It's not about shouting at people and hoping that you blow them off their feet and that they come and buy from you. This is part of the fraud of the broadcast industry, a career which I started 35 years ago. And in 1999 became the youngest MD of a top 200 advertising agency, doing exactly this, shouting at people with fancy ads and fancy press and fancy cinema. Now it's really different, and it's changed quite simply because in 1995, a revolution took place, and that was the arrival of the internet. I know that, by the way. I have here on my bookshelf the original, I don't know if you can see me on the screen, the original World Wide Web directory. This lists all of the websites in the world. Can you imagine? It's an extraordinary change of fortunes in just a career like mine. And actually what it's all about now, it's about reeling people inbound. People are heading towards your business, to you as an individual, to your organization, or however you portray it. They are online looking for you and you're reeling them inbound. And actually, if you look at people like HubSpot, Amanda was referencing their technology. HubSpot, a great way of managing CRM for managing your leads and everything else. They claim that inbound marketing delivers 54% more leads in the marketing. And I've crossed out the F word. I have an F word and a C word. I'm not allowed to use the F word because my business is all about one of these. It is not about, it's not about a thing that has a hole in the bottom. And actually what you do is part of the fraud. You pour all your marketing money in the top and it all falls out on the floor. You absolutely shouldn't be doing that. 54% more leads. And also inbound leads cost 61% less than outbound leads, according to HubSpot. It kind of makes sense. Think about when you go online, when you start to think about making a buying decision, anything, where you're going to stay at the weekend, where you're going to eat, how you get somewhere, how you find out about people, etc., etc. Well, the first thing you do is go online. And actually, there is another key fact. Not only when people contact you for the very first time, they made 57% of the decision to buy, but actually up to 88% of people undertake pre-purchase research. Now, this is supported by the E-commerce Foundation and Mary Meeker of Kleiner Perkins. So you've really, what Amanda says about being present online, about building your personal brand, your own brand, your business brand online, it's critical now. If you're not there, you are invisible. It's where 88% of people are starting their buying decision. Now, before you all panic and think, oh my God, nothing I've got in place works, I don't know if you know who this person is. I don't know if anybody would like to have a go at typing it in the chat. Just who is this person? There are some clues there. But is anybody going to give me a heads up on who they think this person is? When I tell you who it is, you'll go, oh, right, okay. I wouldn't. Correct. Warren Buffett. Thank you very much, Alison. Thank you very much, Mark. It's always great when people play. This is Warren Buffett. Now, most of you will have probably heard of Warren Buffett. This is his website. Now, this website reminds me of the kind of websites that I built back in 1994. This is his website. So before you panic, don't worry. There's a lot more to a personal brand than having a great website. So having got to grips with the idea that actually what's happening is people are flooding the market with clever stuff. They're filling the airwaves, social media and otherwise with really good stuff so that I can get found. We got to grips with that as an agency. It's all very exciting. And then suddenly it all changed again. You see, Gartner bought the company behind the Challenger sale and the Challenger customer. And actually they did some more research just prior to the lockdown and started going on tour before they stopped. And they discovered that 89% of B2B buyers indicate that the information they encountered during the purchase process was of high quality. In other words, wherever I go from different sources, I'm getting great information. And what that does is it confuses people again because it all looks good now. It's a nightmare. So what we needed to do is do something different. And they discovered that actually the people who are closing more deals are the sense makers, not the people giving away information, not the people telling people what's going on, but actually people who are working with their prospects to make sense. This underpins everything we on this call must be doing. We must be helping our buyers, our prospects make sense of what they are doing and what they're buying. We need to be helping them to buy, reining them in as if they were a fish on a fly, on a 2-pound breaking strain. So when you build a personal brand, you've got to build one that really matters. Now, you will probably hear it today. A lot of people use the word brand. They use it willy-nilly. And actually, it's really critical that we understand what brand is. I do not, and it's important that I give you a definition of brand. We spent 3.5 months back in 1999 coming up with this definition. And the critical problem that we have is people muddle brand with branding. So brand is not your logo. It is not your look and feel. It's not your image. Brand is something fundamentally different. That's branding. And what often people are persuaded to do is spend a lot of money putting lipstick on a pig. And this is my little pig here with lipstick on. The problem with it is it looks a beautiful pig with lipstick on, but it's still a pig. And what people make the mistake of doing is thinking a brand is you just have to cover it in a new set of clothes and everything will be dandy. It simply does not work that. What you've actually got to do is follow this definition, which is brand is every experience that affects the relationship between a product or service and its buyer. Now, the critical thing about this is a true brand can only exist in the mind of a buyer, somebody who's given up the two currencies that they have available to them, time and money. And if you had a bit more time, I'd explain that there was only one currency, and that's time, because money is simply an expression of time, how long it took you to earn it, unless you're independently wealthy. So the first thing is a true brand can only exist on the mind of a buyer. But the critical part of a brand today is it is a relationship. It is a relationship that people value more than the money in their pocket. If you can portray a relationship that looks like it's worth more than the money in the pocket, what do you think people do with the money in their pocket? Exactly. They give it to you in exchange for a relationship. So a brand is every single experience in your business, your systems, your operations. Amanda referenced about making a marketing automated. You've got to make everything automated. You've got to make everything slick. This is a brand definition we've been working with for many, many years. Now, from a personal brand of view, it's every experience that affects the relationship between your competency and your audience. So when we're talking about personal brand, we're talking about the idea of what is it that actually demonstrates your competency? Does your brand and everything you do demonstrate that? And then you need to define your audience. I'll talk about that now. So let's build these relationships, right? So there are two key foundation stones to this. The first one is you've got to have a story that makes sense to people. When you talk to people, it's got to make sense. And we call this a values proposition. You see, if you don't have this defined, when you go networking, you'll get 60 seconds to simply impact on people what it is you do. And I learned a very, very tough lesson in New York. I went networking there, and I'm stood there, suited and booted as I am today. Guy comes up to me, he says, "Hi, I'm Hank Weissmuller. What do you do for me?" I said, "Hello, I'm Barnaby Wynter. I'm a professional speaker from the United Kingdom. I'm looking to develop a speaking career in New York, in the US." He said, "Oh, great, but what do you do for me?" I said, "Well, I've got this unique 6-step engagement model called the brand bucket. We've been developing it over 35 years. It does amazing things." He says, "Oh, okay, great, but you know what, forget it." And he walked off. And I'm stood there with a vol au vent in one hand and a glass of wine in another, thinking, what happened there? And the point about New York is it's a tiny little island, and people rush there in the morning. There's no morning networking. There's no evening networking because they want to get back across on the Staten Island ferry to elsewhere. But actually the clue was in the question. They have 1 hour at lunch, not a lot of time. What he wanted to find out was, what do you do for me? So when anybody ever says, what do you do? Do not answer that question. Answer the question, what do you do for me? It's critical. So what is your answer to that particular question? What do you do for people? Can you answer that question? If you can't, your personal brand is in trouble right from the outset. Now, I follow a thing called the IBM model of T-shaped professional. 15 years ago, they identified the new workforce of the new world was going to require something entirely different. So what they did is they designed a thing called the T-shaped professional, which is where they aspire to getting people into the business that can demonstrate a breadth of knowledge, and they're not so worried about depth of expertise. They are less worried about that. They want people who can make tea in the morning and be in the boardroom in the afternoon. That's what they want, and that's the kind of people they have at IBM now. And they've set up universities to do all of this. So when you're developing your value proposition, you should also be looking at thinking about what your breadth of knowledge is rather than necessarily your depth of it. So you can help people in many different ways. And the critical part of this is you must know your subject. Whatever it is, you've got to become a subject matter expert. You've got to then deliver that in an authentic way. You've got to deliver it in an insightful way, and you've got to deliver it in an entertaining way. Now, my business has, of course, developed this, and we use a thing called the 4 Bs. And it's a very simple thing. We call it a values proposition because it has 4 sets of values, and it looks like this. We define what your behavioral style should be because we buy from people we like. So you must define your behavioral style as a personal brand. You must also define what the benefits are that you provide people. So that actually, whenever you talk, it's always about, this is what you're going to get from me. This is what you're going to get from me. You're going to also define what your beliefs are, what you want people to believe about you and your organization. And finally, you have to define what you want to be famous for, what you're going to be famous for. And you've got to sit down and define that if you're going to define your business brand, but most important, your personal brand. So that's the foundation stone first, the value proposition, the first part of the relationship, your value proposition, behaviors, benefits, beliefs, and what you want to be famous for. The second thing you need to do is define your ideal prospect. Now, marketing people are still trapped in this bubble of 30 years ago. It is, and they're still peddling out demographics. It's complete and utter nonsense. It was created for the fraud of the broadcast industry. Yeah, the reality of all of this is actually demographics is dead. We don't need to know whether you're an ABC1, C2D, or what your age range is, or what your sexual preferences are in terms of the modern day, but actually what the makeup is of the target market, what your disposal, or indeed where you live. This is all irrelevant. This is no longer effective as a targeting tool. It hasn't been effective for over 20 years. While the marketing industry is still peddling it, I don't know. If you're putting a business plan together, please use demographics. But from a marketing perspective, forget it. It's dead in the water as a tool. What you need to be doing is doing psychographics. You need to be defining the values of your organization. Now, this picture, I got told off by my wife for taking, and you can see probably why. It's of Brandy Melville, where my daughters were at the time. Now, I don't know if you know anything about Brandy Melville, but the reason why I've got all these fashion examples is because I've got 3 daughters, right? Brandy Melville only sells clothes in one size and one size only. Think about that for a minute. So when you go there, you have to know you're the right size, because if you walk in there, you're going to find nothing fits. And if you look at this picture, everybody who's going in and out of Brandy Melville sort of fits the same sort of body shape. That's knowledge. They know when they're going in there. Brandy Melville is a club. It's not a fashion retailer. It's a club for very specific people. And why? Because they've identified how people think, how they feel, what their experience is. They've identified their expectation, their ambition, their aspiration. These are the characteristics that you should be defining. These are the characteristics you should be defining. Amanda, my daughter, all my daughters have loved it. They go in and out of it, and I've discovered that when they go in first, the clothes are loose, then they fit well, and then they're a bit tight, and then they move on to all the others. It's a weird experience. It lasts about a year. Wow, it's just, but it's because they've understood their psychographic. You need to understand how your prospects think and feel, because now it's just a job of matching these two together, because it's no longer about what you know or why you know it. Simon Sinek, Start With Why, nonsense. It was nonsense. When his book was published in 2009, it was a great summary of the previous 10 years, but it has no bearing on today. It can help if you're developing your value proposition, but actually it's not relevant today. It's about how you communicate. So let me give you a whistle-stop tour on how you communicate. Hang on in, everybody. This is a whistle-stop tour. Marketing has to be systemized into 6 phases and there are 2 components in each. And I'm going to tell you that. And we call this on the head, which is why there's a picture of footballers waiting for a ball to land on their heads. This is how you develop a personal brand. First of all, you need to think about your brand as a bucket, because what you're doing is you're pouring prospects in the top and hoping they stay in the bottom. You will lose people along the way metrically. This is a numbers derived model. I'll show that later. But actually, you will find that you will lose people along the way. But the objective of any business is to keep people in the bottom of your bucket. That's why the F word is of no use whatsoever, because they just leak out on the floor. So the first thing you need to do is you need to engage people. You then need to demonstrate the value that you provide. And then what you need to do is deliver. This is how you build a brand. Every single experience across the whole mix. So let me explain these to you. So phase 1. There are 2 key components to engaging people. The first thing you've got to do is you've got to get known. Pretty damn obvious, I would suggest. And there are 3 ways of really getting known at a personal level. First of all, you've got your own personal name. It's a pretty damn good start. You make that famous. There's nothing wrong with that. The second thing is actually you build something around your business that is something you can be famous for. And there are many, many people who do this well. And I've drawn a few together that I know personally. Anthony Steers is known as the telephone assassin. He is a speaker who allows you and goes into your business and helps you make those all-important telephone calls. So rare nowadays, and do them well. This Bella here is a networking guru. She's a bipolar sufferer, and she's built a whole organization around her. And she calls herself a networking guru. It's brave. There's a chap called Mike Ogilvy who calls himself the profit man, because he's an accountant and he tells you how to find the profit in your business. And then there's a lady called Rebecca Jones who's used a pair of red shoes, the lady in the red shoes. I'm not sure about this myself, but it may mean something different to me, people in red shoes. But there are ways of building some sort of image dimension, some sort of property around what you're doing. And that's actually what the real answer is. You should create yourself a brand property. And what do I mean by a brand property? Something that when you see it makes you go, oh, okay, I get that. So I don't know how many of you know what this is. Now, this I'm discovering as people getting younger is not as familiar as it once was. But I am entirely inspired by this number. And if you come to my office, you'll find all my vehicles have got this number in their number plates, and I celebrate it, and I have all sorts of numbers. Thank you very much. It is absolutely Heinz. Now, the question then for you, Margaret, Simon, is what does the 57 stand for? What's it mean? What's it mean? Anybody want to have a go?
Varieties.
Yeah. Varieties of what, though? Thank you very much, Amanda. Thank you very much, Mark. Varieties of what, though? And here we go. If you're watching the chat, spice. Well, there's one. There's varieties of spice, or beans, perhaps, or food, or tomatoes, or okay. Here's a thing, guys. We have no idea. We have no idea. It's crazy. And I'll tell you why we don't have any idea. It's because it's completely made up. And what H.J. Heinz did is he was on a train. He saw a poster for 25 pairs of shoes. He was really interested in the idea of owning a number. He settled on 57, and then he went about owning 57. So they changed their telephone number to 57, 57, 57. They moved to 57 something street in Pittsburgh when they built their factory. Up to 1969, if you sent a notification of your 57th birthday to Heinz, they sent you a box of 57 products. Actually, the reality was it was completely made up, and he became, and in 1995, they paid $57 million for the Pittsburgh Steelers Stadium, now called the Heinz Stadium. They made the property fun. You can make up whatever you want. You can make up your own brand property. Find something you really love. We were very privileged to be involved in many years ago making these guys famous in throughout Europe. This was their old logo in the top corner. This was their new one. This has a brand property. Does anybody know what the brand property is? I'm not going to ask that question, because if you answer the question, it spoils my story, because the brand property is not the purple or the orange. It's the arrow. And now I'm going to ruin your lives. That's okay, because what I'm going to make sure is you never not see the arrow again. Look at that. I get paid for this, you know. I do. FedEx. I'm on a commission. Yeah. You'll never not see the arrow again. And actually, our first commercial that we did was showing how the airplanes went all over the world overnight, absolutely on time, because they were the first organization to have their own airplane fleet. And what I'm most famous for is this particular item here. Hopefully you know who this is, or get very close to it. But we made this famous in 2003, so that it's now worn all over the UK, all throughout the year. And it's a result of creating a brand property of the daffodil for Marie Curie Cancer Care, who are now known as Marie Curie, and they've been so successful. They're a top 10 charity, and they deal with all sorts of people. And we did the same for E-Trade, a converging arrow icon. That was stalking and pouncing for what became the world's largest online broker. You can have a property just the same as this for your business. I don't know if you've really worked out what my property is, but if I think I need to give you some help, maybe. I don't know, really. I don't know how it goes, but anyway, I've never seen without it. It's taken me some very weird places. All this does, however, is it links you to the business. So what you've got to then demonstrate is actually not only are people familiar with you, but you're making sense of the insights. And the place to do this is, of course, the online arena. So let's go back to Abercrombie & Fitch. So you type in Abercrombie & Fitch, this thing called a SERP comes up. And as you can see, it's got Facebook on it, and it's got Instagram on it, and it's got Twitter on it, and it's got LinkedIn on it, and it's got a blog site, and it's got more information on other stuff, and it's even on TripAdvisor. Now, when you look at that, you suddenly realize that I have decided what clothes I'm going to wear long before I go to the shop, because I've seen it demonstrated online. I can see people like me wearing it. I can see the sorts of things. I know what I'm looking for when I go to the store. So when I go to the store, I will queue to go in and make sure I get what I've seen online. We need to do this too, as from a personal brand point of view, from a business point of view. We need to own the airwaves. Now, you might say, oh yeah, this is young people, you know, trendy, blah, blah, they've got more money than everything else, etc., etc. It's all really good. But let's just look at Seth Godin, one of my favorite heroes. Almost half the books on this shelf are from Seth Godin, and I read all of them. But he's the same. He's on YouTube, he's on Twitter, he's on Facebook, he's on LinkedIn, he's got blogs, he's got Instagram, he's got all sorts of information. So it's amazing. We need to be doing this for ourselves. Now, the great thing about this is you only have to produce one piece of content and repurpose it across everything. Demonstrate your subject matter expertise. Now, just to reassure you, if you're all panicking, don't panic, because there's still hope. Mr. Warren Buffett, let us use him as an advantage. So you click in Warren Buffett, and he's only got Twitter as a profile. Look at that on his server. He doesn't have anything else. So you go on Twitter and you find that actually he's got 1.7 million followers. It's amazing. What's more amazing is his last post was in 2016, and he's only made 10 in total. 10 in total, he's got 1.7 million. There's hope for us all. There's hope for us all. A quick word on SEO. If everybody's trying to blind you with science on that, it's no longer about keywords. It's all about relevance and authority, which links back to the idea of being a subject matter expert. You have to create authority. You need to publish content that people who are authorities in your industry will link to and share. And some facts: the average blog post is 500 words. The average blog posts on the front page are 1,500 words, and the average blog in the top 3 is 2,500 words. Fortunately, you only have to write one a month, so you're all right. You need long form copy. And people are using all sorts of different sources of information: Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, Twitter, Snap, these things, Snapchat. TikTok's probably on that list now. You know, there's all sorts of things going on right now. This is from Mary Meeker of Kleiner Perkins. So you've got to engage people to get them into your bucket. You've got to make sense with your subject matter. You've got to write the 2,500 words. You've got to go to forums and get involved. You've got to go networking and answer the "what do you do for me" question. You need to showcase. You need to do podcasts. You need to become an influencer. You need to get your insight out. The stuff that you're clever at, get it out there. Get it out there. Margaret, I'm not going to stop either. Having done this, you've engaged people, you've now got to demonstrate your value. There are 2 key components to this. What are you actually going to give people? Well, first of all, you've got to give them your benefits. Now, I use a formula for value for this. I'll go through it very quickly. But value, my favorite formula for value is product quality plus service quality divided by price paid plus ease of doing business. That's my favorite formula for pursuing the perception of value. What is fascinating, however, is that when you research this, 85% of the perception of value, according to Gallup, comes from service, quality, and ease of doing business. It's back to that systems thing. Make working with you as slick as you possibly can. So this is value. So your benefits have got to be about your service, quality, and ease of doing business. And actually, you don't have to believe me whether you think this is right or not. Think about Amazon, Airbnb, eBay, Deliveroo, Zappos, Just Eat, Google, Alibaba, Uber. What have they all got in common? Are they online? Yes, they're online. But the key thing about all of them is they do not make the product. They sell other people's stuff. They are marketing machines, and we need to be marketing machines too. And the problem is most businesses do this. They go, we do this, we do that. You and me don't care. We're not interested in what you do. You've got to turn the features into benefits. It's critical that you communicate your benefits. And from a personal brand of view, we all do this. I do this, I do that. You and me don't care about that. You have to turn your features into benefits. It's critical. And there's lots of ways of doing that: through social media, through your website, through publicity materials, through newsletters, through a book. You could write a book. Lots of ways of showing and demonstrating your expertise to people. But having done that, what you do to demonstrate that is you've got to give people a go. You've got to let them have a test drive. And actually, where your website should be is a booking site for your test drives. This is one for the UK's largest chiropractor. And then you go onto their front page and you can either rate your health, get a free health check, or book a massage. At which point it hurts, and then you go in for the free spine check that they've got. So, and then here's Seth Godin's site. And actually what it is all about his blog, his media. You can try them out in every which way. You can have blog in your front room. You can have Seth Godin in your front room. It's amazing. Truly amazing. And that's on his website. It doesn't say who he is or how long he's been going. It's actually do stuff. And of course, what you need to do is make the whole experience amazing. You've got to be responsive to requests. You've got to talk directly to people before writing a pitch proposal. You've got to send a bespoke response, send CVs, show reels, whatever it is to build your personal brand. And ideally, invite them to come and see you at work. That's a great way of doing a test drive. You know what? People don't care what you know. They want to know that you care. That's how you should build your systems. So it's about the prospects psychographically. And then finally, the final phrase, having generated this 57% interest of having created a test drive, you then remove the test drive and people say, you can't take it away. I really love this. And they go, well, actually, that's when they have to give you the money and they buy you. And then you've got to focus on delivery. And this is where the marketing machine often stops, but actually it's critical you carry on. Make the experience amazing. Make it amazing. This lady here, Lindsey Snyder, California's first female billionaire. She owns In-N-Out Burgers in the same county, or the same state, sorry, as Burger King and McDonald's. Why? Because when you go into her store, there's just one burger to buy. It comes in 3 different sizes, a hamburger, a cheeseburger, a double-double. You get fresh French fries with it. Really? Always fresh, it says, and then you buy a drink. That's it. There's nothing else in their store. It's packed. Except when you get your little ticket, you then watch them make your burger. These people, that guy there at the back is hand chipping fresh chips and putting them in the oil. This guy's coming out. This lady's cutting raw tomatoes and breaking up lettuce in front of you. It is as fresh as it gets. You need to be as fresh as it gets. You need to do your pre-meeting research. You need to put out event sheets and speaker sheets if you're going to do speaking. You need to get there early if you can and study the environment that your prospects work in. And finally, the final step is you must put in your marketing plan the ability to say thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And there's lots of ways of saying thank you in all sorts of different languages. But actually, you've got to send them cards. Could send them gifts. You can send them extra ideas out and get more out of your products or services. You can give them industry insights. And we call this the chocolate on the pillow moment. If you've ever stayed in a hotel and gone down for dinner and somebody sneaks into your bedroom, they turn the corner of the bed down like you've never been to a hotel room before. And then what you do is you find a chocolate on the pillow and you go, oh, what a lovely hotel. You need to do chocolate on the pillow moments. It generates repeat purchase, creates advocacy. It means they tell other people about you. Of course, marketing's all about the numbers, as I promised. There's nothing in marketing that can't be a number. And actually, the brand bucket was built on numbers. To get one person at the bottom of the bucket, you need to run 3 to 5 test drives. You need to get 10 times that number of inquiries. And you have to marshal the 57% of people who are already inbound. And now, in line with what Amanda said, one final thought for you. It's been a lot, I know that. Is actually you should be looking at automating relationships within your business. It allows you how to build your brand, your personal brand. So actually, it's already happening. The Cortanas, the Echoes, the Series, and irrespective of what our belief about it is, you need to be thinking in terms of automating your relationship. It allows you to stay small and appear big with everybody. And all of those systems should be built around the prospect and your values proposition. So in summary, to build your personal brand, start with your value proposition, your competency. Treat everyone as a prospect always, even after they bought. Focus on inbound, run your marketing as a process on the head. Engage, make sense for your market, be insightful. Demonstrate your value. Deliver, make buying from you amazing. Build valued relationships with a focus on AI. And just one final thought for you. Einstein. This letter was received by Mr. Einstein in 1907 on the 6th of June. Your application for the doctorate has not been successful at this time, and as such, you are not eligible for the possible position of associate professor. Whilst you pose an interesting theory in your article published in Annalen der Physik, we feel that your conclusions about the nature of light and the fundamental connection between space and time are somewhat radical. Overall, we find your assumptions to be more artistic than actual physics. Do you know what, guys? If he'd have thought he wasn't a subject matter expert, we would be in a very different world right now. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening. I've been Barnaby Wynter of the Brown Bucket Company. Thank you.
Barnaby, thank you so much. What a great presentation. We've had some excellent feedback coming through on the chat. I think, you know, that's just full of hints, tips, the focus on your brand, not being your branding, and having a story that makes sense, I think is really, really a key message for everybody. So just open up to questions if anybody has any particular queries for Barnaby. I know that we had a question, I think, from one of our team that says, Barnaby, are you ever known as the Bucket Man?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
There you go.
I am indeed.
Okay, anybody else have any questions for Barnaby?
I'm known as a lot of other things as well, but I like the Bucket Man, that'll do.
Barnaby, just one quick question. Simon here from Rethink Academy. We're online based. Hi everyone. We're online based, and I have a friend of mine that's been doing the speaker circuit for a while now, and one of his opening garments that has been for 10 years is the future of digital is analog. And interestingly, we're seeing it more and more at the moment, and I've got a few friends that work in traditional online marketing that are moving back to direct mail marketing and looking at offline marketing. And I just wondered if you had any thoughts on shifts like that to combat, I guess, the saturation and people getting bored of online stuff.
Yeah, so listen, Simon, it's unfortunately it's a little bit simplistic. It's meant to be, of course, that's what these headline statements are. If you genuinely understand the psychographic profile of your target market, then what you should be doing is building communication structures around their style, not yours. And you mustn't beholden to the media, the broadcast media people, whether it's direct mail or anything. Lumpy mail is, I've used lumpy mail in almost all my marketing plans, but only send it to 50 people. Spend 30 quid on it and send it to 50 people. You will create the impact, but you've got to make sure that they're ready to receive it. It's not seen as a bribe, that it's not going into the corporate thing. There's so many rules and regulations about it. But I think if you study the behavior of your prospect and say, actually, they would love it if I was at their cycle race, or I was at their bar mitzvah, or I was in the high street, whatever, then build the solutions around their behavior. Then everything's up for grabs. I don't think it's analog. I don't think it's digital. I think it's a blend of everything. Just actually, you know, just everything. So I think, yes, absolutely, but dedicate the energy to understanding what kind of relationship you want with your prospect, who they are, and what kind of experience you as a brand want to portray. I hope that helps, Simon.
Yeah, great. Thanks for the insight. Thanks, Barnaby.
Thanks, Barnaby. Does anybody else have any further questions for Barnaby at this point? I've got a question, Barnaby.
Please.
Given that all of our providers that have joined us today are promoting educational, training, coaching services, what would be your sort of #1 tip for them in order to get them to stand out from the crowd, given that the online education market has boomed incredibly over the last few years?
Yes.
How do you you know, take a particular training brand and really propel it to having its own brand, its own USP, and getting it to stand out from everybody else in this particular space?
Rather weirdly, I'm doing a keynote to the African Commission of Universities on education and how I think it needs to change. So I've funnily enough got an answer to this that I wrote this morning. So whether you agree with it or not, there is a fundamental flaw in education, and that is it was designed post-industrial revolution to enable the system to create factory workers. And what's actually happened is the way education works is it's gone down the flat pack route, equalizing everybody off and churning out factory workers. The problem we've got is there are no factories to go and work in. So you're left in a bit of a wilderness. And we have over 1 million 18 to 24-year-olds unemployed in this question, in this country, because they've got nowhere to work. So they've got a choice of being unemployed or starting their own business. So I'm very heavily, Amanda and I are both in the company of entrepreneurs and passionate about bringing young people into the business workplace. The answer, I think, is beginning to recognize that we are individuals. The great thing about the digital economy is that we now consume knowledge and information at a very, very individualistic level. So I think the core value you can bring is to build the skills, the knowledge, the education, the mentorship, all of the things that you're able to do as an educator, but build it around an individual rather than around cohorts or classes or things like that. Now, that's really, really challenging, but be warned, that is what AI will do eventually. And let's be quite clear about this. I should have mentioned it before. AI is not machine learning. There aren't any AIs at the moment. Everybody keeps talking about AI and layering it over it. Actually, AI is defined where you cannot tell the difference between a human being and a machine. That's what AI is, but it's fed by machine learning. Machine learning is with us right now. And what it's doing is it's enabling us to be individuals. So I think I will be building a brand which says I've got subject matter expertise in this field, and I have built systems and processes where you, the recipient of the knowledge, the information, the skills, feel like you are an individual. You're treated like an individual. You're not being flat packed with hundreds of thousands of other people. So actually go through the program and you end up in the same way. And you know what? If you take your own persona and build your brand around your own persona, you're going to end up working with people you like, who are like you. And that's where the individualism can come in. And that's how I would differentiate every single person on this call. And I think you can absolutely do that. And then it becomes about whether you can make money from it and all those sorts of things. They're separate things. But the reality is treat the learner as an individual. Make your systems and process celebrate their uniqueness, not yours.
Thank you ever so much, Barnaby. Well, just a huge thank you on behalf of all of the attendees here. It's been a fantastic session, and we have slightly run over, so we have about 6 or 7 minutes before Amanda Fitzgerald is going to join us. So if anybody would like to break off and go and grab a coffee or a comfort break, that's absolutely fine. If anybody would like to introduce themselves and network and the community start talking to one another, do please feel free to introduce yourself.
And also happy to answer questions if that's of any use to anybody.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all gone quiet. It's so strange running such a large
it's great.
Session online. We've not done this before, yeah, it's very different to standing at one of our events with welcoming the speakers on and, you know, encouraging individuals to talk to each other.
Marketing tips, sorry, it's Twitter marketing tips. At the brand bucket is the handle, so that's normally recognized as a Twitter. So thank you for asking, Amanda. There's currently a video series of tips going on at the moment. I don't know where we're at in it, but near the end.
Okay.
So,
I think, am I okay just to like throw something out there?
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely. We've got 5 minutes.
Right.
Let's chat.
Yeah, go.
Absolutely.
Come on, button girl.
Go for it, Mags.
Personally, I've like literally completely found that fascinating, because we've kind of literally built a business on a process for connected thinking. That's where we're coming from in terms of marketing. So I thought that was absolutely amazing what you've been talking around there, and I totally agree. And I think it's fantastic to have a much wider conversation around what marketing is, because we asked that question in our training workshop. We said to people, what do you think it is? And honestly, Barnaby, if we ask 10 people, we're going to get 10 answers, and I find that utterly fascinating, because if people are then employed to drive it forward in a business, if 10 people each think it's something different by default, we're not going to get anywhere, because we've got a different understanding of the very thing. And I think it's great to showcase it as a much bigger process. You know, it really, really is. I think it's fascinating. And I think that's been fantastic, you know, to hear what you've, you know, to hear more about the bucket. There's space for a button in there.
There is space for a button. There's always space for a button. Yeah. So it's yeah. No, I mean, I think many years ago I used to put up a slide saying the Marketing Society had on their front page only 6% of boardroom people were marketing people, and that 90% of companies had salespeople, and this we have a problem. And the problem was not that marketing didn't have the right profile. It's just that actually marketing is not treated as a science. It's not treated as a fundamental business. I think CPD, for example, is a critical part of adding value to your marketing mix, because it actually tells you that it's all been qualified, it's all been put through. It helps differentiate you. It's another differentiator.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
I think that you know, there are lots of things that we need to add in, but it's systemized. And actually, the way we run our plans is from a metric point of view. We drive net profit. It's all built in there. That's not part of this particular presentation because it's not necessarily relevant to a personal brand. But actually, the whole process is about making it all roads lead to Rome, which is ultimately net profit in your business. Everything else is irrelevant, and marketing is fundamental to that, because if you think about what business is, it is simply commercialized relationships. In other words, relationships that you build that you make money from. And that's what business is. And marketing is probably the only discipline in the business toolbox that has relationship at its heart. Sales is about deals, operations is about systems, you know, the chairman's about lunch, you know, it's
absolutely. I think honestly, Barnaby, this is completely where we're coming from, because I think there's a big word in our world, which is purpose. And people go, you know, I'm just doing that, and I'm doing it because Bob in the pub said that he was doing it, and I'm thinking I'm going to do that. And we're just going, is that a really good enough reason why you're doing that? And I think we're big on, like, and you say about relationships, you know, we call them threads because we've got 4 buttonholes and we just really want to connect them, and there you go. So we're all about connectivity, but it 100% agree that it's relationships. It's relationships with the 4 key things that we've got. It's with people, it's with the community, it's with yourself, it's with every blinking thing going. And you've got to be open to that, you know, those kind of relationships. I mean,
the button's a great analogy because it holds my jacket closed, which then keeps me warm, and you know, all those sort of things.
Yeah, absolutely. It's your business, Barnaby. You put it on, you've got to have something driving it.
I get that. There's a question here from Maylene. What is the value of previous education on the market? Not quite.
Would you be able to provide some more context, Maylene?
Yeah, Maylene, is there any more context to that?
Previous education at all?
Good afternoon, everyone.
Hello, hi, Maylene.
Hiya. Yeah, I'm asking that because, as I've said in the chat, everything's changed. Marketing. I've got a string of CPD courses that, you know, I want to do, and I've bought them, you know, and I'm just wondering if some of them are like of past relevance, you know, to what is happening now. So, you know, what value do I look for in my courses?
Okay, so that's a great question. I think we definitely move in a now environment, so things move on. The trick with that is to find there are many rules that have not changed, in spite of all the willingness of all the innovators, the disruptors, and saying actually there are still things that, you know, we still drive on the same side of the road, and we still, you know, sleep at night, and there are many. So what I would be doing is going through each aspect and showing the course to the modern world, and finding the common foundation stones in every single course that absolutely are rules that can be followed and can be followed and are kind of unlikely to change. And then anything else that's kind of examples of those, try and update those so they are more of today, and say, look, this is this rule. I think this rule still holds water, but actually, if you now look at the way TikTok are doing it, or Amazon are doing it, or Apple are doing it, or something like that, this is how they're interpreting that rule. And what you're equipping people with is a toolbox to add to their own personal experience, to then ultimately go and interpret the world in a better way. And that's your role and responsibility within as an educator, in my view, for now, around the individual. So I think every course will still have some great stuff. Listen, I'm quoting from books that were written 50, 60 years ago. There's still great books. There's still immutable rules in there. But what I do is I reframe them so they live in a modern day, rather than, you know, we're using examples from a bygone era where the kids just stare at you and go, I don't know. I don't think that works.
Yeah.
Does that help, Maylee?
Right.
Yeah.
Yep, thank you for that. It makes sense, because I didn't want to get confused. You know.
There'll be plenty of good stuff in there, don't worry.
Okay, I'll keep it going.
All right, well, thanks ever so much, Barnaby, for your
I'm gone.
time and for answering those questions with so much advice and detail. It's really